Donald Trump submits another filing in Judge Juan Mercan's courtroom, and this comes after Judge Juan Mercan, seen here, says don't file any more documents. Previously here, we talked about Trump's invocation of presidential immunity, saying to Judge Juan Mercan that I was the president at some time when you say, or when Alvin Bragg says, there was criminality that occurred. I am now immune from that, or at least we don't know whether I am until the Supreme Court makes their decision. Of course, that is on appeal at their desk, and we're waiting for oral arguments on that case, which we're going to be covering. But while the immunity issue is on appeal, they can't move forward with this trial. That was Trump's argument. Juan Mercan is not happy about it. He says, don't file anything else like this without my permission. So Trump said, okay, like the next day, filed something. He says, well, do I have your permission to file this? A whole new one that Trump is going to rely on advice of counsel during this trial. And this is what Juan Mercan said in response. He says, all right, everybody, Trump and co-counsel, trial on this matter, because Trump just submitted his filing, is scheduled to commence on March 25th. Now, although the deadline for motions in limine, this is the judge basically screaming to Trump, was February 22nd of 2024, Trump yesterday filed a substantive motion seeking, among other things, an adjournment of the trial on the grounds of presidential immunity. Says Trump does not explain the reason for this late filing, a mere 2.5 weeks before jury selection is even set to begin. And the people have been granted, this is Bragg, the prosecutors, until March 13th to respond. So the judge, very unhappy as you can see, he says effective immediately, the parties are hereby directed to obtain leave of the court before filing any additional motions before trial starts. Don't file this again. A party seeking leave must file a letter, which is a pre-motion letter with the court, no more than 1 page in length. We're going to see if Trump obliges. Now, the pre-motion letter must set forth the basis for the motion and the relief that is being sought. And the opposing party then will be given 1 day to respond should it choose to do so. The court will then grant or deny the request. If leave is granted, the court will notify the parties of the briefing schedule, and in appropriate cases, the court may exercise its discretion to construe the pre-letter motion along with the opposition letter, if any, as the motion itself. So don't submit stuff into my courtroom, okay? And if get my permission before you send it. And if you ask my permission in the notice, I might just consider that to be the motion and just deny. We're getting very anger-on vibes here, okay? So I don't even need to hear from you. I've already decided. So Trump basically said, okay, thanks for that instruction, but we have another filing that we are now sending in. So Trump submitted this right out of the gates, turns around and says, okay, judge, this is President Trump's notice then. If you want a notice, here it is. Here it comes. Trump is going to be relying on an advice of counsel defense, and this is going to make the judge go bananas, okay? He's not going to be happy about this because they were saying that they needed to disclose this a long time ago so that if Trump was relying on his lawyer's advice, then that would make those conversations discoverable. If you leaned on your lawyers, if your lawyers told you to, do what you did, there's emails about that, right? So let's get the emails. Let's get the phone calls. Let's get the conversations and all those things. So Trump didn't want to invoke the advice of counsel defense. Otherwise, it would open up that box and they would get access to all these materials. So Trump has really not been wanting to make that acknowledgement, but now trial's right around the corner. So now if you're, pulling a card out of your pocket, like boom, right? You're serving that one on your opponent. That's kind of what Trump is doing right now. So he just drew it out. He says, oh, you want notice? Okay, well, here's some notice, Judge. President Trump respectfully submits this notice. It's not a motion as you ordered, a notice. Hey, Judge, this is our notice concerning our intent to rely on the defense of advice of counsel at trial, as ordered by the court on February 7th. We're notifying you. So at the outset, we emphasize, Your Honor, that there is a marked difference between the commonly referred to advice of counsel defense and the defense that Trump expects to raise at trial, which is just so perfect. There's like other rules with advice of counsel defense. He's like, but it's not exactly that. Deal with it. And the defense that Trump expects to raise at trial, part of that defense, not the full thing, it's kind of different than what you wanted. That's why we're not violating any other rules. Part of which will be that Trump lacked the requisite intent to commit the conduct charged in the indictment because of his awareness that various lawyers were involved in the underlying conduct that gave rise to the charges, okay? So do you see how sneaky this is? It's not that Trump and the lawyers had conversations about this and Trump got their their advice, because if that was the case, then they would say, well, what was the advice? What did you get? What did the lawyer say to you? If you're following advice of counsel, they must have given you that advice. How'd they do that? Was it a meeting or what? They said, pay Stormy Daniels this way. This is what we're doing. Pay Michael Cohen this way. Move this money around, all of it. If you got advice, then you talked about those things, right? Let us see. Trump is saying, no, I didn't get and take their advice. No, we never had conversations. It's a general awareness. See this right here? He just knew that they were doing stuff. So I knew lawyers were in charge of it, but I didn't talk to them about it. I got a bunch of lawyers doing a bunch of stuff. So there's no privilege to breach because we didn't actually have a conversation about it. But I was aware that I had lawyers working on the case. So it's not actually advice of counsel, but it's kind of advice of counsel because I knew lawyers were on it, but I don't know what they were doing. Very clever. I like it. As Judge Kaplan recently stated, and so they're referencing the other judge out of another courtroom who was presiding over the E. Jean Carroll trial. He recently stated, evidence concerning the presence, involvement, and even the advice of lawyers in relevant events is viewed best as evidence probative of the defendant's intent to defraud or the lack thereof. So Kaplan's talking about that in the Sam Bankman-Fried case, saying that the claimed advice of counsel is evidence that, if believed, can raise reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors about whether the government has proved the element of intent. And Trump here, he intends to elicit these facts from witnesses, including from former AMI executives and from Michael Cohen, whom we expect will testify about Trump and his awareness of the counsel and their involvement, but wasn't aware of their specific involvement itself. Like, what were they doing? I don't know, but they were doing something in the charged conduct. This is not formal advice of counsel defense. It's kind of awareness of counsel defense. Now, while President Trump intends to elicit evidence concerning the presence, the involvement, and the advice of lawyers in relevant events giving rise to the charges in the indictment, he does not intend to assert a formal advice of counsel defense that would require him to prove at trial that he made a complete disclosure, right? These are the elements that he would have to show. Trump is innocent. The other argument would be Trump is innocent because he told his counsel everything. He got advice on the legality of it, element 2. Element 3, he got advice that the conduct was legal, element 3. And 4, he relied on that in good faith. He's not saying that. If you want him to be able to prove that, right, that's not what we're arguing. So there is no privilege waiver, right? We're not making that argument. So there's no basis for Alvin Bragg to demand a preview of our defenses. So sorry, we're having it both ways. Thanks for playing. They also say there are several pending motions in limine, and the rulings on these motions may also alter our theory of the case. And also, several witnesses in the grand jury were either lawyers themselves or they testified about interactions that they had with counsel during the course of the conduct charged in the indictment. To the extent that these witnesses are called by the people, their testimony may again alter the defense theory of the case. And so Trump should have a meaningful opportunity to present a complete defense. So we're raising awareness of counsel, and we're not telling you what our defenses are on top of that. So as such, Trump is not in possession of any privileged material that requires any production today pursuant to the court's prior order. You're welcome. Thanks for playing, your friend Todd Blanche. Love that. Okay, so we're going to see a serious outburst from Judge Juan Mercan, who's not going to be happy with this. He's going to say, oh boy, you are invoking advice of counsel defense, and he's going to be very upset about this. So we're going to be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing. This trial is right around the corner. We're going to see what Juan says, what Alvin says. Trial starts on March 25th, and this is our calendar, public calendar, robertgovea.com/calendar. You can click this plus Google Calendar button down here at the bottom and add this to your calendar. We've got a ton of stuff you can see we're keeping track of, including, we got the George Allen Kelly, the Arizona rancher trial coming up. And then in April, you can see very busy. Trump SCOTUS deadlines. We've got State of Arizona versus George Allen Kelly still going on. Trump's immunity oral arguments at SCOTUS are happening on the 25th. So lots of stuff cooking. If you want to follow along, robertgovea.com is where you can come and join us over there. We'll be covering this and the rest of the Trump trials. Thank you for joining us as we do, my friends. We'll see you back here on the next one.